Hey, what's up? Coming at you this afternoon from my garden. I wanted to quickly just chat about something that Matthew and I had been talking about this afternoon while we had lunch. And it's this idea of an analogy around relationships and the dynamic that we face in relationships sometimes. And I can't remember where I heard it, but I've thought about it for the last few years. And that's this analogy of reaching up and reaching down. And I've seen it in a lot of relationships, and I've been involved in it in pretty much a lot of my relationships, where very often when you first connect with somebody, one of the people falls more in love than the other person, and inherently by doing that they almost put the other person on a pedestal. And the analogy there is that the person who puts the other partner on more of a pedestal tends to be sort of reaching up, and the person who's on the pedestal by default in terms of the split energy is reaching down to the other person. And neither of those two are an amazing situation to be in. When you're reaching down, most of the time you feel like you've got more power in the relationship. You know that the other person will almost always be there for you, and you can I sometimes felt like I could get away with more stuff because the energy was split in a way that this person had put me on a pedestal. I've also been in a relationship where the opposite is true, and that's where you put the other person on a pedestal, which is also not good because the energy is again split. But this time the person reaching up, or when I was reaching up, you're so in love with the other person and you put so much of your hope and your heart into this relationship that you start to be like, this person's not in my life. I'm not going to be able to live. I'll be heartbroken. And you again split your energy as a function of putting that person on too much of a pedestal. I think that the correct way to have a relationship is to be at a level where you're reaching out, where you're connected to somebody and you realize that you both have strengths and weaknesses of your own, and you know what those are, and you know where those are in your partner, and you spend time working on those things, celebrating those in yourselves and in one another, and rolling together as a team. Nobody reaching up and nobody reaching down, but rather reaching out. And I think that reaching out relationship and achieving that is again something I've spoken about quite a bit, and that's this idea of developing your most important relationship, and that's the relationship that you have with yourself. Because even if you are reaching down in the scenario where somebody puts you on a pedestal, that split energy where you realize that you hold more power and you accept that as something that you want to have in a relationship or in your life, you are essentially like, I feel when I did it this way around, felt like it was driven by ego, where it was this idea that I had this power potentially over somebody that was a connection in my life. And if you start to accept a relationship like that, or you accept the relationship where you put somebody up on so much of a pedestal that you know you've just given them way too much and you're not feeling reciprocated in that way, you're in essence not loving yourself enough, and you tolerate that as a dynamic in relationships. So it's just something we spoke about at lunch, and it was quite an interesting thing to think about, and an interesting, I think, dynamic to work towards in any single relationship that you have, whether it's a business relationship, a family relationship, or a romantic connection, whatever that looks like. But I'm working hard to make sure that the connections that I have in my life at the moment are very much like me accepting who I am, knowing where my strengths are, knowing where my weaknesses are, being open and honest with the other person about where those are, and understanding where their strengths and their weaknesses are, and then rolling together so that you work as a cohesive team and not one person giving everything and the other person taking it. I hope that you're good. Just an update on the property. We had I'm in the garden now at the moment. We had a meeting with a building contractor today to get some ideas of some of the changes that we might make to this place once it goes into our name. There's a few things that we need to update. One of them is the bathroom situation. We've got to sort out a water problem in the house, which is not amazing. But it's kind of exciting. We're having cool conversations. The recording studio, which we're going to be setting up, is also going to be a priority. And as we tell people in this community, as we get to know them, what our plans are for this space, they are more and more excited about the idea of having a recording studio in town. So I'm really looking forward to that, and looking forward to documenting this journey as we go. Have a look at the volcano up there behind us as the sun goes down on San Marcos. Till next time, ciao ciao.